With more on tonight's meeting of Canada's First Ministers, we're now joined by Susan Holt, Premier of New Brunswick. Premier, thank you for making the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Listen, I want to begin with what you heard from the Prime Minister, a plan to deal with security concerns being raised by Donald Trump. What did you make of what you heard from Justin Trudeau?
Well, I thought that there was quite a bit of detail shared by the Prime Minister with the First Ministers. They went through a number of different elements of the plan, some that were legislative, regulatory, security. We talked about increased personnel, increased investment, how we're going to better detect and deal with fentanyl. We talked about RCMP and DEA partnerships. We talked about new FPT tables to address border security. It was a pretty comprehensive plan that the Prime Minister laid out.
Comprehensive, although we're now just a few weeks away from the inauguration of Donald Trump. Do you think it will be passed and implemented before Inauguration Day in Washington?
I think we'll be able to make enough progress to demonstrate to our partners to the south that we are serious about border security. We have strong, secure borders between Canada and the U.S. right now, and we continue to invest to ensure that they stay that way. So I think that there's a strong case to be made here.
Okay, a strong case, as you say. You know, it was interesting, though. We heard from Premier Ford right out of that meeting of Ontario, and Premier Ford is the current chair of the Council of the Federation. He clearly said that the border is a federal responsibility. But I'm wondering, you, as Premier of New Brunswick, do you see a role for your government, for your province, in tackling the issues that are being raised by Donald Trump, drugs and migrants in particular?
Well, I think it's a partnership. Certainly, New Brunswick has a significant border with Maine and an extremely active port that brings in a lot of goods that go directly into the U.S. And so we want to make sure that that port continues to grow and thrive. And we want to make sure that what has been a very peaceful border between the New Brunswick and Maine remains so. So we have on-the-ground knowledge, firsthand knowledge of how that's working everywhere from Edmundston right down to St. Stephen. And we can share that and partner with the federal government and with our counterparts in the U.S. To make sure that we're investing in the right places, that we're catching trends as soon as they happen, so that we can continue to have the kind of security that we've enjoyed for the generations. You
talk about the active border with Maine. I'm wondering if you've had a chance to reach out to the Maine governor and have discussions around this social media post put up 2 weeks ago.
Well, the governor and I have been matching up our calendars, and we have a conversation coming very shortly, but we actually were just on a collective call with the New England governors and the Atlantic premiers last night to talk about the integrated nature of our two regional economies and the importance of a lot of the products that move from Atlantic Canada into the U.S., particularly electricity and oil and energy products, forestry, lumber products, agricultural, seafood products, and others. And so we really got the sense from our colleagues in New England that they saw how these kinds of tariffs could be hurtful to their economies. And so we're building allies together to make sure that we can prevent that kind of pain from being experienced for Americans as well as for New Brunswickers and Canadians. Okay, building allies, as you say, but I'm wondering how much of this evening was focused on a strategy, I guess, to hit back in terms of retaliatory tariffs. What was said on that front? We talked a little bit about retaliatory tariffs. They weren't the main focus of the conversation tonight, but certainly we have to be prepared for every possibility, and we have to be prepared should these tariffs come into place that we're there to fight back. And so that list is being built. All of us are participating in what makes sense to go on the list for our provinces and our economies, and it's something that we're preparing that hopefully we won't have to use.
Okay, now it's interesting because the Prime Minister going into the meeting talked about the importance of a Team Canada approach. He's been talking about that since the Truth Social post a couple of weeks ago. But we also know that there are provinces doing their own outreach. And I'm wondering from you whether or not you are worried about New Brunswick and its concerns getting lost in the shuffle if, for example, certain industries, certain provinces look for sectoral carve-outs from any tariff.
Well, one of the interesting things about New Brunswick's economy, and I think you'll find this is consistent across Canada, is that we share a lot of the same sectors of importance with various neighbors. So certainly in New Brunswick, there's a significant amount of oil that gets exported from New Brunswick into the U.S., some 320,000 barrels a day. We share that in common with Alberta. We have a significant seafood trade that we share with other parts of Atlantic Canada. We have significant trade in lumber. We share that with BC and other provinces. We're concerned about cultural industries. We share that with Quebec. So there is actually a lot of connectivity between the concerns of each province for their economies and what we share with other provinces. So I think Team Canada will continue to be strong because we're having regular communications. We've connected, I think, 3 times on this so far. We're going to do it again this weekend. And those conversations are going to continue to make sure that each of us is aware of the unique needs of their province and prepared to support each other as a unified team.
So you're not worried about individual provinces doing their own outreaches?
Well, I think those individual outreaches are positive. We're doing the same. You know, we have business leaders and people like myself that are reaching out to our connections in the U.S. To make the economic case, reaching out to the places where there's strong integration between our companies and the products that we export. And the same thing is happening all along the border between other provinces and the states and the places where they're doing a lot of business. And so all of that is going to help us strengthen the case to make it clear to the Trump administration that the tariffs he suggested will be really economically devastating for the U.S. So I think everybody participating in that activity helps make the case stronger.
Premier Holt, again, I appreciate the time. As always, thank you for this.
My pleasure. Thanks.